Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today, myself, Chris Garner, and Tayte are going to give our review on Baby Driver, which is Edgar Wright's latest movie, 2017 action film. We have a lot to say on this. I saw this yesterday. I believe you saw it 2 days ago, didn't you, Tayte, this one?
No, I saw it yesterday as well.
Oh, did you see it yesterday? So it's still very fresh in our mind, and as soon as this film ended, I thought this is probably going to be one of our most interesting reviews. Certainly with me, because for the longest time on the channel, I've been very open that I'm not a massive fan of Edgar Wright's previous films. I can understand the appeal there. There's definitely a unique style to each of his films, but it's just one that I've never gravitated towards. But this movie may change all that. So before we get into our actual review, we usually go in with initial opinions and stuff like that. But before we get into any of that, Tayte, do you want to give us a rundown on the plot of this from the trusty IMDb?
Yes, sure. Trusty IMDb giving us a one sentence, really. After being coerced into working for a crime boss, a young getaway driver finds himself taking part in a heist doomed to fail.
Yes,
I think that's... I don't know whether that's very accurate or not.
Mm-hmm. It's better than that. What was it? There was one that was like a sentence long in terms of its.
That might be... No, The Legend of the Sword was a paragraph. Like, The Legend of the Sword was an entire book long. It may have been Alien, whatever the new film was called, because that was just like... a crew goes down to find a new planet and finds aliens instead.
Yeah.
Like,
but our review on this one, as always, will be review in two parts. We'll start off with a spoiler-free section, so you don't have to worry about us giving anything away. And when we get to spoilers later on down the line in this review, we'll let you know when we get to that. This might actually be really hard to talk about in spoiler-free because so much of this film is based on spoiler. I mean, if we're going on the trailers, really. I saw one trailer for this, and I kind of half-watched it. I can't remember which film I was going to see that I got the trailer for, and really my thoughts, I didn't know what to make of it. I knew it was Edgar Wright, so I was I didn't tune out immediately, but I thought, oh, this is going to be like another Scott Pilgrim thing, which is a film that I didn't really care for, like the visual style to it, everything like that, but I didn't really care for the movie itself. And I thought what this movie was going to be a sort of knockoff of Kingsman, like a kind of secret agent, he's a getaway driver, that kind of thing. And it was anything but Kingsman. This was a completely different experience for me after seeing this movie.
I personally am a big Edgar Wright fan. I love the Cornetto trilogy. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is one of my favorite films of all time. It's one of those films which I can just stick on and watch whenever I want. It's probably because I'm such a big pop culture nerd and a video game nerd as well. So Edgar Wright, like hearing that he had this new film coming out, I was like, oh my God, yeah, okay. I've watched every single trailer. And I'd have to say that one of the things that if we're talking about this trailer, the trailers sell you a different film.
Yeah. I think the marketing for this film's been pretty bad.
I'm happy either way, but the trailers did sell a different film, which in some instances can be good because it means it's a lot harder to predict. But still, like, I went in expecting one thing, got something completely different, but still loved it anyway.
Yeah.
So.
And unfortunately, I don't think this movie is going to make much money at all. It's a weird time to bring it out alongside Despicable Me 3. We've still had Transformers, but hopefully that's dropping off. Homecoming coming out, War for the Planet of the Apes. So it's a really packed month for films. So I don't know if this was the best month to do it. And as you were talking about with trailers, I thought whether they sell a completely different film, I just really haven't seen. I mean, I go to the cinemas a lot. And I've seen one trailer for this thing. I've seen a couple of adverts on the sides of buses, and that's really it. There really hasn't been much driving force for this movie. And this is a video that you did on your other series, Thoughts on Film, where you were saying that nowadays we don't really get many original films. We still do. They're just very limited compared to how the film studios used to be, for example, like in the 70s, 80s.
It obviously doesn't help when you have a film which is so, I wouldn't say poorly advertised, but advertised to be something different. And I was going to see this film anyway. I wouldn't have seen either version of this film, but for some people it may have chewed them out by seeing the trailer.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because I will say that this is by far my personal favorite Edgar Wright movie, and also one of my favorite movies from this year. This film is incredible. It's one of the most tightly written scripts, stories, everything that is set up. For the most part, there's a few things I have towards the end, which I'll get into in spoilers, that I have a few problems with. But for the most part, something is set up, it's paid off. And this one felt more like a movie. Like Scott Pilgrim, the jokes were way, every single second there was a joke.
That's completely mimics the comic,
pace
though.
of it.
That completely
I
mimics the
haven't read
comic.
Yeah. So I struggled to get into the pacing of Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I think the just comedy style of Shaun of the Dead, for example. Hot Fuzz was okay. I didn't see the World's End. I always get mixed up with This Is the End and the World's End. I haven't seen that one, but I didn't really gravitate to the comedy in that. There are some jokes that fall a little bit flat, but I was just completely enraptured with the characters in this. And I was interested to see where the film went, because the first scene of this movie is not the film of how I expected it to be or how it actually progressed and evolved as the film went on. There is so much that's set up with this character, and he's a really interesting character, the character of Baby, that I was just completely enraptured by the movie. Without a question of a doubt, my favorite Edgar Wright movie he's made so far.
It's a tough call. I believe George put in the Cinema Savvy chat that we have, was it better than Hot Fuzz? And I didn't know really how to answer that, because George is obviously saying, oh, Hot Fuzz is the best film. Was it better? Is it his best film? When actually, personally, for me, Shaun of the Dead is a better film than Hot Fuzz. I do enjoy Hot Fuzz, brilliant concept, brilliant film, but I feel like Shaun of the Dead, with the parody of the genre that it's doing, did it better than Hot Fuzz in reinventing the genre that it was doing. We don't talk about The World's End as much. It's still a solid film. It's just that it's other two, and then World's End's down here somewhere. I would put it up there with one of the best Edgar Wright films. I truly would. It's exciting all the way through the entire film. You get wrapped up into the music of the film and the way just it blends into the film perfectly. I really want to see this again, because I'm sure that I will. I mean, I was saying this to you afterwards. As soon as you left the cinema, you were saying that you put on your shades, you stuck on your earphones, and you started walking in time to the music and stuff like that. And like, I was driving back, and you could just whilst you're driving, you can kind of time it to like going around like corners with the music and stuff like that. So it really is. It's a film which gets you kind of loving life, which is brilliant.
And like Edgar Wright's other movies, music's always played a big part in all of his films. A lot of people talk about the soundtrack, for example, to Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I guess that's probably his most well-known soundtracks out of all his movies. This is a concept of a film based around music entirely. It's very much tethered closely to the character, which we can't go into right now. We'll go into that in spoilers. But when it started off, and we get a soundtrack song with all the action going on, and then the next scene, we get another song, and I was like, oh God, Edgar Wright's trying to do a Tarantino thing here, but Tarantino really paces the music out in between scenes. This is just going to be constant. It's going to be like Guardians of the Galaxy. I'm going to get tired of this really quickly. But as the film goes...
Did you get tired?
As soon as they gave a character reason as to why he listens to the music and for why it's such a big part to him, and then it got wrapped up into the style of it, I was completely fine with it, and then it became like a really unique thing with the movie. As I said, really well-written script, really kind of just tragic character, Baby, in this film for a lot of it. And in terms of the music, if you're going to work it into the script, it was worked in fantastically. I think he actually picked all the songs first and then wrote around it. I might be wrong about that, but I think that in the script, he had all the songs planned out from the off what he was going to use. Which is amazing. And you can tell that that music plays a big part in Edgar Wright's life. That's why he keeps integrating into all his movies. I thought it was probably some of the best use of music. The soundtrack to this thing's fantastic, but we'll talk about music later. But the actual concept of this movie, I don't think I'd seen anything like it in quite a while that.
The only film that I can kind of compare it to is Drive. And that's purely because it's a film about a getaway driver.
Who's quite stoic and doesn't say much,
That's the only comparison you can make to any other film, really. It's just brilliantly executed. I mean, just from the very, very off, I mean, this isn't really spoiling anything, but when you go into the cinema, the first thing you hear when the film starts is a really, really high-pitched whining. And that is the tinnitus that the character suffers from, which you are kind of meant to it's just kind of putting you in the shoes of the character even before you've seen the character.
I love how they did that, because it fades in from the Sony bling sound effect, doesn't it, into the tinnitus sound. Yeah, that's really cool.
I mean, you think, okay, they're just going to do it for a small amount, but they keep it in your head for a little bit longer than you find it comfortable, so you know the situation that he's in. And that immediately, without even meeting the character, makes you empathize with them. And I don't think I've seen a film do that just in the starting logos, make you like agree with a character already or feel what a character is feeling just from the intro titles.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, no film's done that before. I dare to find another. Like,
yeah, and I mean, speaking of film logos as well, TriStar Pictures. It has been a long while since I've seen a movie that's been made by TriStar Pictures. It's one of the most nostalgic film logos to me, with the Pegasus running towards the screen. So it was kind of nice and surreal seeing that as well tied to this movie. But we can get into the characters a bit now, and obviously we can't go fully in depth into these characters because so much of this film is based around spoilers. But main character is Baby, played by Ansel Elgort, who's an actor I haven't seen before. I know that you said he was in the oh god, what's the series of books that he was
Divergent
in? Divergent
and Fault in Our Stars.
I've read the book Fault in Our Stars. I haven't seen the movie, and I haven't seen the Divergent series. I stayed away from that. But I thought he was fantastic in this. We compared him, I think, to a young Han Solo after we watched this, because the costume he actually wears does kind of look like the classic Han Solo costume. It's like the white shirt with the black waistcoat thing over the top. So I did get a lot of Han Solo-ish vibes from him in this. I thought that was pretty cool.
I also got James Dean Rebel Without a Cause kind of vibes. And that's due to his dress sense. It's also due to kind of some of the actions that he does in the film. And maybe his motivation. But yeah, I mean, I just really enjoyed this film.
But I've hinted at it a bit, but he does have a very tragic past that you learn as the film progresses. We get more insight into it, which really sets up the character and his place that we meet him in the film. That's pretty much all I can go into right now, but it is a really riveting story. And he's a character that you really do connect with. He's very human in a lot of ways, although we meet the character and he's doing like these lip sync battles that you see on the TV now. He's basically doing that. And again, I thought, oh God, this is going to get old really quickly, but you can just see how much music plays a role in his life. And then the music pretty much develops and evolves as the character does throughout the film. We have his love interest, character of Deborah, played by Lily James, who played Cinderella in the, I can't remember which year it came out, the live action Disney retelling of Cinderella.
Wasn't too long ago.
This is one of the most believable and sweet romances I've ever seen blossom in a film for a long time. If we're looking at one of Edgar Wright's other movies, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, that's a very different kind of relationship. It's one that even by the end of the movie, I know there's two different endings to that film, but the main one that we get, it's still left kind of up in the air, bittersweet.
In Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, I still get frustrated that he didn't pick knives.
Yeah.
Spoiler for that film. He basically had a choice between two girls, one who he's been fighting for this whole time and one who's been fighting his corner the whole time. And he chooses for the one that he is fighting for, not the one fighting for him. So all of the lessons that he may have learned throughout the entire film kind of go to waste. There's my short review, Scott Pilgrim. Love the film. But yeah, this and La La Land this year, it might be the year of relationships, because two brilliant on-screen relationships. Yeah, like you said, it's completely believable. Like the interaction and banter that they have at the very, very start when they're starting to speak to each other, which carries on through, and kind of the, I wouldn't say awkwardness, but the kind of silences that kind of fill the space, and you can kind of see what they're both thinking, and you can see a mutual attraction there, and all of that kind of leads into something which is completely believable and most people have experienced.
I mean, it's all down to the script and the acting as well. I mean, the script is fantastic. Like, the dialogue feels natural, but it still feels incredibly well written with precision, which is what Edgar Wright does fantastically in this movie. And also the chemistry between Ansel and Lily literally just burns right off the screen. These two are incredible together. I'm
surprised they haven't been in a film previously before, but I'm sure that if they get the chance, they'll probably go into another film together, because that's a good kind of romance we can see on screen.
Yeah, so. And it's not like a romance film that's just based on saying sweet nothings to each other, or based on just, you know, there's an attraction there from the beginning, but really the first thing that captures his attention is when he hears the character singing, again, because music is so important to him. And you could argue that maybe hearing that song reminds him of his own past as well, which we'll get into in spoilers. So it is a really believable, nice introduction of these characters. I'm going to say the best two films I've seen, well, best three films if we count La La Land, have all been romance films. And one of those movies came out in '93, which I saw for the first time this year. I saw it at a little screening in London, and that was True Romance. Like the romance between, it kind of reminded me of True Romance with Christian Slater's character and Patricia Arquette in that movie. That movie is written by Tarantino, and I think in terms of well-written scripts, like I'd put this movie up there with the likes of Tarantino. Just how everything's paid off, everything's set up, everything moves at a great pace. Maybe apart from the ending. Again, I'll get into that later.
I feel like there's always going to be a flaw to a film. Like, it's where La La Land kind of excelled, because you can look across the entire film as a whole, and it flows beautifully. And even the ending is the best part of that film.
Yeah.
This film maybe takes a slight dip. We'll talk about why it isn't as exciting as maybe we wanted it to be, because we could both probably pitch an idea which we both love and want more. But it wasn't underwhelming. It's just we feel like it could have been better if blank had happened instead.
And I can't put my finger on it. Again, not giving anything away with the ending in terms of the specifics, but this film, I'd say it is an action movie. I think it's classified as an action movie. There is a lot of action throughout this movie in terms of car chases.
Does IMDb do classifications? I don't even think they do.
Wikipedia has it down as a 2017 action film.
Action, crime, music.
Yeah. So, with this, like, it is an action movie. You do get car chases. The opening scene is a fantastically, beautifully shot. You're in it, like, car chase. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And you do get, like, other shootouts and things throughout the film. But maybe the ending takes, like, a lowest common denominator ending and becomes a bit too cartoony with its action. I can't put my finger on it. I think I'm going to have to give this film another watch, and maybe I won't have a problem with it the second time. But it felt like it really... It started to drag towards the end, and it didn't quite have the conciseness or the punctuation that the rest of the film had, maybe.
Let's talk about Doc, played by Kevin Spacey.
One of my favourite actors of all time.
Another good Kevin Spacey performance.
Yeah. He plays a real son of a bitch in this movie for the most part.
He plays an asshole in this movie. But, yeah, once again, a believable asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, he has to control all of the crews that come through. He's the guy who sets up all of the heists that are going to take place in the film. He is the lead man. So really, the film could have been a main character focused on him, except for the fact that he's a dickhead, so they wouldn't do that. But just his interaction with every single character, it's almost as if like he's got a different relationship with every single character, and his actions are different to every character to keep everyone within the loop, keep everyone on his side, and I'd say quite a manipulative character.
Oh, very, yeah. Well, I mean, there's straight up moments in this where he blackmails the main character.
Yeah.
With violence, he says, like, you know, I'll break your legs, like you'll never walk again. Like, I know people that you care about,
do you want to work
that
for
you
me
love,
or break? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's Kevin Spacey, so you're always going to get a good performance out of him.
But I mean, it's funny. Again, it's in terms of tone, I'd say that this is probably the darkest of Edgar Wright's movies. And not to say that the film's consistently dark, but in terms of there's like scenes in this movie that are just genuinely great tension building. It deals with a lot of. I mean, there's death in this film. People get murdered in this film, and I'd say it's done in a way like the first Kick-Ass movie, where there's moments where it's very comedic, it's very almost comic book-like and funny and fantastical. But then again, there are scenes that do keep tethering it back and going back to a real sense in terms of the violence and the stakes of the characters. And I think that's what gives it a unique tone to this movie compared to some of his other films.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, no, Kevin Spacey, absolutely loving this movie. We have a lot more to say about Kevin Spacey.
So moving on to direction, it's very free flowing. You have a lot of scenes. I mean, even when seeing it in the trailer, it's shots where in any other film that shot wouldn't exist. It would be 3 separate shots, and they would be fast cut, and he just blends it all into one. Like the best example I can give of this is. In the trailer, you see him running away from, I won't say what, but you see him running, and then you see him jumping across tables. Now, that's kind of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like an action version of Wes Anderson. It's very kind of minimalistic, low key, but it still fills out the entire scene.
Mm-hmm. And he blends scenes like that as well as actually, cinematically shot action. Like the opening scene for this film, as I said, was a car chase, which is up there. I don't know if I'd put it up there in terms of like the best car chases or anything like that, but it was very well shot. Great introduction to the character. Yeah, and then he does blend it with some. It's almost like parkour, wasn't it? Towards actually, I guess I can't say when that scene takes place because that's a spoiler in and of itself.
Parkour, maybe.
Parkour. I mean, I'm feeling like I'm repeating myself now, but this is my favorite Edgar Wright movie in terms of direction. I think he's absolutely flawless with it. The music we've kind of touched on as well. I don't know all the songs specifically, but this is a movie that I might even consider buying the soundtrack to. I've
already added the soundtrack to a few of my playlists.
Have you? Yeah.
Specifically my film movie score playlist on Spotify. So
I mean, this is a soundtrack that has 30 tracks on it. Now, I'm sure some of those might be some score in there, but it's mostly actually soundtrack in this film. And you know what? If this movie did nothing else, it gave me a bigger love of music than I already had. As I said, I came out, immediately listened to my iPod. And now, since this movie, and while this movie is still fresh on my mind, every time I put my iPod in, I'm always taken back to the character of Baby, and I don't see that going away anytime soon.
Which iPod? There's like 20 in the film.
Oh, that's true. He has loads of backup. It didn't say he has an iPod for depending on his mood for different days of the week.
Yes. And today he is pink and sparkly.
It's pink and sparkly. Mine's just like in a black leather case and looks really boring and minimalistic. The case is kind of fallen apart. I've had it for years.
Oh God.
And my music taste is very eclectic, so there's music on there for any mood that I fancy.
That's a pretty dead mood. I don't even have an iPod anymore. I used to. It was silver. If that
See, I have an iPod Classic, so I have like the whole scrolling wheel thing.
Yeah.
So going old school with that. No, actually, I guess if I was going old school, I'd go with a tape deck, which he does have in this movie, by the way. He also has that.
He also has vinyl. He has everything. I think he has everything.
He does. He does. Will he have?
He's got to play so much music to drown out the tinnitus. So.
Do you think he'll have one of those? What is it from Guardians of the Galaxy 2? What's the device that Star-Lord gets at the end of that movie? Kind of like the knockoff iPods that never really took off. Was it the Muse?
Oh, Zune.
Zune, that's it. Yeah. I guess we'll go into our recommendation of Baby Driver then, because that's pretty much all we can talk about as of right now.
Chris, recommend this film without saying it's your favorite Edgar Wright film.
I would absolutely recommend this movie, and just to anyone, because this movie needs to make money, and I want to see more movies, not just like this. I want to see more original content, and it's kind of like the Kubo and the Two Strings thing, where I think, didn't that movie make a loss, or did it eventually make its money back?
I believe it made its way back. I will quickly check.
It's these new films that we want to keep getting, and we don't get enough of them. We get nowhere near enough as we should do. In terms of style, in terms of pacing, in terms of character, this is just a really enjoyable film. If you're a fan of comedy, action, crime thrillers, anything like that. Actually, one thing I did want to say, that because this is a heist movie, I wondered, because before this, Edgar Wright was all set to direct Ant-Man for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and clearly he, kind of like the Han Solo thing, now the director's had a very set vision of what he wanted to make.
So maybe this is the film that parts of the film would have been in part of Ant-Man, because Ant-Man is also a heist film.
And seeing the tone of this, for example, even during the heist scenes, I'm imagining what his Ant-Man could have been like if it had been like that.
I think that would have been maybe one of the best Marvel properties.
Of course it would, because it would have been original. It would have been something different. But Marvel, they've always got a set cookie cutter formula for every single movie, and they want to limit creativity and limit originality. But recommendation: please go and see this movie. Please support this movie. As I said, it covers many genres. It's a romance film as well, crime, all those. Go and see it. It's fantastic. It's a fun time. You won't be disappointed.
One might say it's a music-driven film.
Oh,
he now gets it. Okay, so I recommend this film as well. I'm always a big fan of Edgar Wright, and I feel like he's one of those directors who just doesn't get enough attention purely because he doesn't do that many films. But yes, seriously, go see this film. One of the most genuine on-screen romances we've seen since La La Land. And I just really enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable experience. I can't see anyone going into the cinema and not enjoying it. I can see people going in and nitpicking it, but it's still one of those films where no matter how much you watch it, you would still enjoy it, or at least one element of it. But yeah, Kubo and the Two Strings, by the way, did make a bit of money back, not much. 60 mil budget, as with all like films. 74 mil return.
Did that cover its cost of advertising though? I don't know, because there really wasn't much for that movie, I don't think, in the end. But that'll do it for our spoiler-free section on Baby Driver. I almost forgot the name of the movie then. Baby Driver, we're going to get into spoilers now. If you... oh, we could do another review on that. I love talking about that film. If you haven't seen Baby Driver yet and you do want to see it, please go away and watch that movie first, because seriously, you don't want anything given away in this film. Come back to us after and check out our spoiler section. So... I think we're going to try and keep this brief. We're not going to go through the entire movie, but I think we are going to start with the character introduction. I've already talked about the car chase and everything like that, but this is where I was really unsure on the movie. As I said, with the whole like lip syncing thing and the constant music, I've really thought, if this is what the movie is going to keep doing, if this is what the movie thinks is funny and is just going to keep churning that out every single time, I'm going to hate this character. I'm going to hate this movie. I'm not laughing. This is miserable. It's when we find out fairly early on his backstory. Regardless,
I knew from the trailers that he had tinnitus or tinnitus, or whatever you call it, because in one of the trailers, I believe it says, "Why is he always wearing earphones all the time?" Taps on the earphones. He says. He has a permanent ringing in his ear, run with the drum. It drowns it out. And I was like, okay, so it's tinnitus. So he plays music all the time to drown out the tinnitus. So I'm like, okay, this film's going to have a lot of music in it, because if it's focused on him, every time he's on screen, there'll be music, which is brilliant. And I mean, even in scenes later on in the film where he takes off his headphones, you can hear a light whining of tinnitus. And it kind of comes at a dramatic moment as well. So it kind of heightens the... kind of the tension, I guess. But yeah, I wasn't actually, even though I knew that he had tinnitus at the very start, I also had exactly the same thoughts. I thought him mouthing the words, and I guess I wasn't set to the rhythm of the film yet. It's a film where you definitely need to get into the rhythm of it to actually experience it properly. And I wasn't in the rhythm until about the 5-minute mark after the car chase. After the car chase, I'd settled down. I'm like, okay, I can now get into the rhythm of the film. But maybe for the first car chase, maybe that's why they have the car chase there, or the big car chase there, because it helps you get into the rhythm of the film, helps you kind of introduce the concept of the film, how the character is going to work, maybe also introduces some of the other characters, some of the members of the heist crew that will be used later, in the shape of Darling and Buddy. Also just kind of it settles you in nicely, and it's a good car chase. It's a brilliant car chase with some brilliant stunt driving.
But with you talked about the first team there. One of my favorite bits in this movie, and this is what I was talking about when jokes are set up and paid off throughout the rest of the movie. We have John Bernthal in this movie. For anyone who doesn't know who he is, he played Shane in Walking Dead, the first couple of series of that. Most famously now, Netflix is The Punisher. There's a line that he has in this movie, and he's great in this movie. I saw him in trailers and thought, I can't wait to see him in this movie. He's really not in the movie a whole lot, but his last line in this movie is fantastic, because they're in an elevator. He gets off on his floor and he says, "If I don't see you again, I'm probably dead." And we don't see him again throughout the rest of that movie. So I guess we have to infer that he died, which is really depressing.
That's just kind of something which kind of gets you afterwards. You're like, oh shit, he didn't actually return to the film.
It was literally like just before the end scene. I was like, oh, we're not. No, it may have been actually when Jamie Foxx was introduced. I remember back to the earlier line.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm sure there are loads of Easter eggs in this film of hinting, foreshadowing. Anyone watching at home, to events that take place later on in the film. But yeah, we also get introduced to the debt. Or kind of introduced to the debt. We don't understand why he's having to pay off Kevin Spacey, but the main character of Baby owes Kevin Spacey money, and that's why he's working for him. And we see him just kind of not taking much money, but taking a small cut of the money, because he's obviously been paying it over a long period of time. We find out later, way later in the film, that it was because he was found stealing Kevin Spacey's car, and Kevin Spacey allowed him to steal the car, and then kind of tracked him down afterwards because he saw him have potential. And throughout this entire film, I mean, even in the spoiler-free section, we said Kevin Spacey is a dickhead in this film, but he's probably the closest thing to a father figure that he has in this entire film.
Yeah.
I mean, even though he has a person caring for him, looking after him, it really feels like Baby is caring after, what was his name? Baby is caring after Joseph more than Joseph is caring after Baby. So really, the only father figure role that he has is Kevin Spacey, and that shows towards the end of the film, where Kevin Spacey kind of sacrifices himself and becomes more like, he speaks to him as if he was his son. He kind of says, "Okay, you're going to get out of this," stuff like that. And even when, I can't remember who did the monologue to, but saying like he didn't blame him for the whole stealing the car thing. Like, he's an orphan. Like, he had nothing really to go on in life. He had no one to follow, and that's kind of one of those moments which is just like such a tragic character.
Well, me and you didn't expect the redemption that Kevin Spacey's character had in this film, because for the most part, this film sets him up as the full-on antagonist. Like, he is the end goal. He's the one that Baby is going to have to find a way to dispatch so that he can get his freedom at the end of the film. There's a moment where, you know, because Kevin Spacey's character in this film is a man of principle. He's a man of rules. And the whole debt thing, he says, once we're square, that's it. You can leave. I've used you. I think he compares him to like his Lucky Charm on all the jobs that they've busted over the years. The one constant, he always changes the team every single time, he says, but the one constant has always been Baby. And it's, yeah, it gets to that moment where Baby gets out, and then he's kind of forcibly drawn back in for this one last job. And you're hating Kevin Spacey at that moment. I mean, I love Kevin Spacey, but like, I love seeing him play a villain character because he's just so good at it.
He's played my favorite villain of all time in the shape of Verbal Kint. So
yeah. And yeah, I mean, he's good at playing a good guy or a bad guy or comedy, as long as he's not doing 9 Lives. That is kind of like a blot on his entire career, unfortunately.
Lord.
But yeah, I mean, he gets a moment of redemption at the end, but it still feels in character. It doesn't feel like a convenience. It feels, I don't want to say, I'd say it is a friendship. It's kind of a very messed up, mellow friendship between the two. And I love the line as well where they keep going back to the Monsters Inc. quote, which again, foreshadowing is set up earlier. It's the, we're a team, nothing is more important than our friendship. And there's some moments in this film where they do explain the joke, like when, I think Baby mentions mentions that line to him about 3/4 of the way through the film, and I laughed because I've seen Monsters Inc. loads of times, so I knew that line anyway, and obviously I remembered the line earlier in the film because you actually see a scene from Monsters Inc. on the TV.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of scenes where, you know, Kevin Spacey then goes, "Don't give me that Monsters Inc. shit. I've seen that film many times. I recognize it," and I'm like, it's still funny, but you've just explained the joke, Edgar Wright. And there's another scene in the film like that. Which I hate being the only one to laugh in the cinema. If there's a packed crowd, if there's anyone in the cinema, I hate being that one person that laughs and you're not laughing with everyone.
Yeah.
But the scene was where they're about to do this job and Kevin Spacey tells them to get Mike Myers masks, the killer from Halloween. And then one guy's like pulling the mask out the bag and it's Michael Myers. I switched it. I did exactly what the movie did. He wanted Michael Myers from Halloween and he pulls out a mask of Mike Myers, Austin Powers. And they don't say anything about it. And I burst out laughing. I thought, that is absolutely genius. But then they explained the joke. He goes, "Oh, I thought we had to get Michael Myers from Halloween. Is that Jason Voorhees?" And that's Mike Myers. And I was like, if you'd have just left that as a visual gag, like only some people would have got, I think that would have been a better, very subtle, but more comedic moment. I don't know. There's only a few moments like that in the film.
I feel like the as far as if we're splitting the film up into 3 heist crews, the first heist crew is good for an introduction. You get like the small hits of characters, you get the premise, you get the setup. The second heist crew doesn't exactly go very well. One of the members of the crew screws up pretty bad by leaving their shotgun, by kind of leaving a trail that could lead to kind of the end of the situation they've got going on, so he gets deaded.
Yeah.
And then the third team is by far the most interesting. And they focus a lot on the film on that third team and the post office heist that goes wrong. And you can see various different things that could go wrong going into this scene. First of all, you've got Kevin Spacey kind of having tension, saying, "Okay, guys, no matter where you are, you're sleeping here tonight. You got to stick together. You can't go home." So immediately traps Baby, so he can't actually leave the team, even though he obviously wants to leave. They then go to the gun warehouse to buy the guns, and Jamie Foxx's character Bats recognizes that they're policemen, and instead of kind of going along with it and thinking they're obviously policemen who are dirty, he decides to just shoot them up, and that just kind of adds the whole like shit, something's going to go wrong here in this heist. Like, it feels like a GTA heist right now, which is about to go terribly wrong. Then we have the whole situation where Baby tries to escape, and Kevin Spacey is interrogating them and just says, look, we're either calling the heist off or I'll get a new driver. And I don't know. I mean, knowing how Kevin Spacey's character ended and knowing how when people leave the job, they usually get deaded, I think Kevin Spacey would have let him go and just let him go. I don't think he would have killed him. Knowing that character trait at the end, him saying, let's just stop the heist, was trying to save Baby from possible harm, which is another father figure thing you can see from the film.
One other character we need to talk about in this with the second team, though, is the introduction of Jamie Foxx. My God. Like I've seen a lot of Jamie Foxx films. This might be one of my favorite performances of his. He is terrifying. For any It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia fans, he's basically the wild card of the group, I would say.
He is the wild card.
He is the aggressor. He is the one that is always trying to use the most violent means for selfish reasons as well. As I said, that Kevin Spacey is a man of principle, and kind of everyone else in the team is. They all have their unique roles and only need to do what they do for the job. This guy just, if he's going past an off license, he wants something from there, he will rob it. He will probably kill the cashier or something like that. He is absolutely insane. And all the scenes with him, there's a lot of other ones as well with other characters, but the best scenes of tension building are all with Jamie Foxx. There's a scene where all of the main characters find themselves in the diner where Baby's love interest of Deborah's working, and it's one of the tensest scenes I've seen all year. Going back to the Tarantino comparison, I don't think it quite comes to that level of tension that Tarantino is able to bring in his films, but by God, it comes close. There were some genuinely on the edge of your seat moments in this, and because you're completely in the moment and it doesn't really appeal to all typical Hollywood tropes, that scene could have gone anyway. Like, Deborah could have died in that scene,
very
and
easily.
I wouldn't have been surprised. I wouldn't have been surprised at all, because Edgar Wright's such a,
it's
us, but you know what I mean. It's
a mixture of Edgar Wright and Game of Thrones syndrome.
Yes,
no character is safe anymore in film or TV, unless you're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where everyone lives, including sometimes the villains. But yeah, I mean, that third team, you have the wild card, the over-the-top, outrageous Jamie Foxx, who was also in the second team, but wasn't as kind of wild. I feel like he gains more confidence, and therefore he becomes more of a threat. And that's possibly where I thought, okay, so Jamie Foxx might be the villain here, because Kevin Spacey's kind of disappeared into the background a bit more. Maybe he's going to be the villain. We have the characters, the other love couple in the film, characters being, what were their names?
Monica and Jason.
Not Monica and Jason. Buddy and Darling. And I feel like their motivation as characters is they're in it because they enjoy it. They're in it because they love each other, and they just want to do enough money to live up the rich lifestyle. And that kind of goes wrong in the third heist.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, go on. No, you go on.
I was going to say, this is where I like the setup and the bit where Monica dies, because every member of the team, even though they're bad guys, they all have character. There's a really nice moment, for example, where John Hamm just he's trying to get to know Baby. He sits down, he takes an interest in his music. He's like, oh, what you listen to? Brighton Rock, Queen. Oh, I'm a rock fan as well. I like Queen. And they have that bonding experience. You see tensions in the group fraying pretty much from the off. As Jamie Foxx is there, he's very aggressive to the Baby character. But when Monica's actually killed in the shootout, this is where it snaps back to that reality. It is a genuinely, I'd say it's probably based on lust as well, quite a lot of it, but it did seem like a fairly genuine relationship with them, because you see them from the first group. I don't think it's clear on how much time passes between each job, but
I'd say a small amount of time.
Yeah, but they're together. You can tell they love each other. And even Jamie Foxx says that. He says, like, I don't doubt that. I can tell you're genuinely in love. But what I like about it is when you see the result of that relationship and how fired up and angry it makes Buddy's character, I think that plays a lot into the ending, where Baby's decision to turn himself into the police, because if they'd have carried on their kind of Bonnie and Clyde adventure,
he would have become
that is the couple that they would have become.
Yeah, it leads on because obviously we have Baby having second thoughts about the heist. He sees the person who served him previously, who was a nice person, and he kind of does the whole "no, stay away." That causes the heist to kind of go tits up. He has to kill Bats. I'm surprised that Buddy and Darling didn't immediately shoot him after that.
Yeah.
I feel like they were also annoyed by Bats.
Well, they wanted to kill him as well, didn't they? There's the scene
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
Darling says that he looked at me funny. Well, we won't kill him now. We'll kill him after the job. So that idea was already in their head.
But then we have the chase scene going from the mall. That it's on foot. They're trying to get away from all of the police that are chasing them, foot and car. Sorry, and it's a brilliant sequence because you have this music playing in the background. I can't remember what it is, but they've used it previously in a Nike advert, and I just remember that music kind of adding the tension to it. Don't know what's going to happen next. What's going to be around the next corner? Are they going to get caught here? Are they going to make it out? Are you going to even live after this scene? And in the end, many shots fired, and Darling does not make it.
No, this scene though, the entire ending with John Hamm's character, this is where I think the film lost a little bit of its steam, because to me personally, it went on a little bit too long. And as I said, the whole film did have cartoony elements, but this went way overboard, in my opinion. There's a scene where John Hamm's character like straight up teleports. They kick him. What happens? He's in the car, isn't he? And they push it over the edge, and then within like the space of a second, he's back on the top.
Dude, I'm talking about the after the third heist, literally immediately after the death of Darling.
Okay.
You're talking about the very ending.
Yeah, but it leads into that, doesn't it? The death of Darling is what?
There's a long period of time between those two. You have Baby going over and saving Joseph, taking him over, making sure he's safe. You have him going back for Kevin Spacey. Kevin Spacey being the father figure role, and then it moves on to that scene.
Yeah, so just going straight to the end.
That's fine. Okay, but yeah, I feel the teleporting thing. I feel like this final fight scene wasn't needed, and here's why. Yep. I pitch to you a bullet-styled car chase to finish off the film, and I want it to be the longest car chase of the film. I want it to be extravagant. I want it to involve the police as well, maybe chasing after them. I want it to involve all of the characters who are left alive in the film being involved, maybe like all the key characters. So maybe even getting involved previous heist characters, which we hadn't seen any more of, just kind of getting involved as well, having their own word in it. But I wanted to see just a massive car finale for a film which has Driver in the title. Mm-hmm. But instead we got a really confusing, very isolated, generic showdown to finish off the film, which was predictable in a lot of elements.
We're on a mission.
One part of the film that we could have predicted.
Yeah, as I say, you wanted the ending to be we're on a mission from God. You wanted Blues Brothers again, didn't you? Definitely. You wanted that big car pile-up style ending.
Of course, because why not?
I think for me, like, I don't have a problem with who the bad guy turns out to be at the end and the whole confrontation at the end, because it is a conflict found. You know, you understand where it's coming from inherently, but I just think it went way too. You have the initial car bit with Bright Rock. Like, you could have just had that. That would have been fine in itself, but then I think there's like a second part to the car thing, and then they're on foot, and then they push him off, and then it's the fake out, and then he's still alive. To me, it just went on too long, and then the actual ending, it felt very abrupt. So Baby hands himself in, and I didn't expect it to end like this. I thought it was going to be a completely happy ending, which I guess it does turn out to be like that, but this bit makes it a slightly more bittersweet in that he does actually have to pay for his crimes, although he gets parole within 5 years. And I just pulled my headphones out.
I'd say it was more of an atonement for the film, and you don't usually see the atonement for characters who commit crimes, and he does commit crimes throughout this entire film, but he does it because he doesn't really have a choice. He's being forced into this situation, and seeing him pay for those crimes, it feels right. Mm-hmm. It feels like if he got away with it, then he would just be another criminal. But because he's paid for his crimes that he committed, like, it feels like the film he can actually start his life afresh again. There isn't any black marks upon his name.
Yeah,
which feels good.
but the actual ending, it's a scene that's set up earlier in that kind of 50s or even before, like black and white sequence, which is beautifully filmed. I'd love to see Edgar Wright do a film in that style, like the entire movie. But it felt very abrupt, like it just immediately cut to credits after that, and I felt a little bit disconnected from that. The film just clocks in at under 2 hours. You literally needed like an extra minute, I think, if that. It felt like it just needed a little bit more emotional resonance at the end. I was expecting it to like, did it snap back into color at the end from the black and white?
It did. It faded slowly into color.
But before you could like even appreciate that, it just cut to the credits. I wanted to see them. They didn't even need an exchange of conversation, maybe a voiceover. Then I think I just needed something that went boom. That's the ending.
Closure.
As such, it just
needed closure.
Yeah, I had a bit of whiplash from the sudden credits. I was like, oh, okay. I stayed for the credits in case there was anything during or after.
See, I've got to the stage now where with every single film, I immediately go onto Reddit and I check, does this film have an end credit scene? Nope. Okay, I'm off. The only one where I would actually, Kubo had an end credit scene at the very end, but I would have stayed anyway because that is a phenomenal credit scene in itself. But yeah, so Chris, final recommendation. Should we say best scene of the film before we do positive negatives?
Jesus, best scene of the film,
or your favorite scene?
Oh, God, you put me on the spot there. Do you have one? I need to think on that.
I have one. My favorite scene of the film is the laundrette scene.
Yeah, I love how the two moved in that scene and how the camera followed them around, and they're constantly, each one has an earbud in either ear.
And the conversation that takes place, that played out like a musical. That reminded me perfectly of just kind of a blossoming relationship. It's something that you kind of, just the conversation that you have, the fact that you're in a nowhere place that doesn't really matter, and yet the only thing that matters is the person you sat next to. Like, I've experienced that before, and it is amazing. And that scene perfectly personified that feeling. So that is my favorite scene of the film.
Gosh, that is a great scene.
A scene with no action is in an action film. That is.
I honestly, hand on heart, I don't know what I'd pick as my favorite scene because there are so. It's a cop-out answer. I know it's an easy way out, but there are literally so many good scenes in this film. I'm definitely gonna give it a second watch, absolutely, and that's rare nowadays. We said this for Wonder Woman. I actually didn't get to see it a second time. It's still on the cinema, so I might catch it again. But we see a lot of movies. We have to see movies every single week for reviews for the channel.
A lot harder this month as well because we got Homecoming, War of the Apes.
Yeah,
completely overrunning our schedule. Dunkirk towards the end of the month as well. But yeah, I want to see this again as well.
But I don't know how long this is going to be on the theatre because the more big movies come out, the more screens they're going to want. They're probably going to push this one out within a couple of weeks, which is going to be really sad. So I definitely will go and see this one again, I think, before it finishes its theatrical run. And who knows, maybe when I see it again, I'll actually have an answer for people. Maybe we'll save that to another Q&A session at some point. What is your favourite scene of Baby Driver? And I can give my answer then. But without a question of doubt, would recommend this movie. Please go and see it before it finishes its theatrical run because in terms of a cinematic film, it's great to see it on the big screen. And the sound as well in this movie, whether it be from the music or the actual sound design, is fantastic too. So that'll do it for our review on Baby Driver. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of this movie. Are you planning on checking this movie out? Please say you are. Have you seen it? Didn't you like it? What's your favourite Edgar Wright movie? Anything related to Edgar Wright's films, please do let us know. In terms of what's coming up on the channel, we are gearing up for another episode of Battle of the Brackets really soon, which we can confirm is going to be the greatest movie badass. We've got the draft all for that sorted. You can find that on our Facebook and Twitter links. Links to those are in the description down below. There'll be more trailer reactions from me. There'll be more movie reviews. I believe next week is going to be our Spider-Man Homecoming review. And in lead up to that, me and George will be bringing out a review of Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. We've already recorded Spider-Man 1. I'm going to jump on a review for Spider-Man 2 right now. So look out for those. Hit the subscribe button, like, comment, share, all that good stuff. And until the next video, we'll see you guys then. Thanks for watching.